Have you ever done a drawing of something thinking that it was pretty good, only to come back to it the next day and see that everything's wrong? Yeah, me too. It happened to me recently when I did a live stream on my Patreon. I did a drawing of Hades from the comic that I've been working on, and I thought it was going pretty well. I was happy with the drawing, and I even went on to the next stage, which was flatting it. But then I came back to it the next day and I noticed a lot. A lot of stuff was wrong in my eyes. But the main thing that was wrong was the pose. And I'm going to wager that 90% of the problems that you're having could be solved by correcting the pose. Yes, that's an arbitrary percentage, but one of the reasons why your drawing may have come out worse than you expected is because you lost the pose while drawing the details. Still don't know what I mean? Let me show you. This right here is the initial drawing I did to get the pose right. I think this pose is pretty decent. It achieved everything I wanted it to, and that's why I was ready to move on to the details. But what I failed to do was remember this pose, and I ended up losing it. The main culprit was the coat, and if you're struggling to see what I mean, then let's have a look at the silhouette. Notice the original drawing I did, and then look at the silhouette. See, the flow and overall shape of the pose has gone from looking pretty good to looking stiff as a stiff thing. And that's the main reason why when I looked at the drawing the next day, I felt that sense of, oh, bollocks. I think we've established the problem, so now let's get on to how to fix it. I could have just reused the underlying drawing that I did and just re-rendered it, but I redrew it for one simple reason: exaggeration. I exaggerated the pose for two reasons. The first is that I wanted an exaggerated, semi-realistic style because I find that more interesting and it matches the style of the comic a little bit better. But the second reason is because I wanted to cement this pose in my head so I wouldn't forget it while I was adding the details. So while I was thinking about how he'd wear his clothes, especially the coat, I knew that I had to preserve the pose, which influenced how I drew those details, which led to this new version of the drawing. I personally think this is a huge improvement because the pose has been perfectly preserved. And that's the point of the pose in the first place, right? To show this even more, let's do a side-by-side comparison of the silhouettes from each drawing. Notice how the shapes in the new version are more well defined. The pose is stronger in this one, and therefore the drawing is stronger. Also, the head was too big in the original one, but that's not the point of the video. Is the new drawing perfect? No, probably not. But is it much better? I think so. Now, the best cure for this mind-numbingly annoying situation is prevention. So how do you prevent it? Well, as I mentioned already in this video, when you figured out the pose of your character, you must remember to preserve it at every stage of the drawing. Certain clothes and accessories are going to influence the silhouette, and that's fine, but the strongest area of the pose must be protected. For me, the strongest part of the pose is the middle part, and so that was important for me to keep. It might be different for you depending on the type of pose you choose and what you want to express through it. And that's kind of it, really. I don't know if this is something that just applies to me because I'm an idiot, or if there's something that you've struggled with as well. So if you do, let me know in the comments. Now, if you're a beginner artist especially, and you're struggling with what to study specifically, then there are some things that you can study which will help you address some of the problems that I've mentioned in this video. The main two that I would recommend if I was talking to my past self would be figure studies and shape language. If you study figure drawing, then it will help you draw convincing characters in general. And if you study shape language, then the silhouette of your characters will be a lot stronger. And usually if your drawing has a really strong silhouette, then that means that it's a good design and a good drawing. So if you study those two and then draw your next character, you should hopefully see a bit of a difference. Understanding these concepts on an academic level can be quite easy, but then when you actually apply it to your own work, that's where things can get sticky. And sometimes you don't notice any of this until someone points it out to you. Luckily, I've ruined a lot of my own drawings that I'm starting to be able to recognize where I'm screwing things up a little bit better. And hopefully this video has helped you evaluate any drawings that you're not entirely convinced by. It might be that you've lost the pose. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to go through some of my old drawings and weep at the poses that I've lost along the way. To avoid a full meltdown where I question every decision I've ever made, consider liking and subscribing if you'd be so kind. Have fun drawing.